Balancing life.
This meeting is being recorded.
Petra, you have the floor.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, everyone in the room. If everyone would mute themselves so that the recording will be, because we will get feedback. And when you're in the same room, that's part of something that occurs. But I appreciate all of you joining us this morning. Those of you on 54th Street and those of you somewhere in Los Angeles or anywhere else, we appreciate you joining us. This morning, I facilitated a room. We were talking about the power of your words, and I will include a little bit of what the speaker shared. What's your thoughts and your words as you are a caregiver, and what that actually means in the process, in the journey of caregiving. So for those of you who are new caregivers, welcome. We want you to become educated about your journey, about the disease. There are different types of dementia, so whatever you are, whatever's going on with your loved one, know specifically what dementia you're dealing with, and we could assist you. We want you to identify as a caregiver while you are husband, son, daughter. That's so very important. But the role of a caregiver, identifying as a caregiver, comes with some benefits, and certainly participating in this support group is one of them. So be sure that you take on the role, even if you don't want to, in that sense, the word caregiver. And you are not alone. They are 18 people on the Zoom, and I don't know how many are at the location, but that's a large number of people. We'll talk about self-care. And what I want to begin with is a special tribute to ACTS. I appreciate the founding of ACTS, Actively Caring Through Sharing, the journey of Sharon and Jeannie, and what they have come, how they have come to support the community in a way that I don't even think they were thinking about when they were in the throes of their personal caregiving journey. But I thought about ACTS and I came up with this: actively addressing the needs of our community caregivers. So that's A. C is for caring like no one else does for those who care. That's Sharon and Jeannie and ACTS. Through minimal support, but does a great work, and that's appreciated. Sharing wisdom, compassion, empathy, supplies, respite, and love to those who need it. So that's my idea for ACTS. Thank you again for being here. And this is a support group, so we do want to do a check-in. And for those of you who are on the internet and Zoom, can you please type in the chat what word describes your feeling this morning? What word describes your feeling this morning? For those of you who are at the location, if you could, I think Kimberly is there. If you could give Kimberly your words and she will read them off to me. But for those of you who are online, please type your words in the chat. What word describes how you are feeling? Overwhelmed, whatever it is, just share it. Okay, I love this. I'm going to read the words that we have here. I see happy, tired, grateful, grateful, hopeful, comfort, overwhelmed, curious, overwhelmed, grateful, exhausted, grateful, hopeful, apprehensive. I hope that that captures the feelings of those of you who are here this morning, and these are all normal. We appreciate you being transparent and sharing how you're feeling, and open to hearing and open to this new journey. So we'll start with downsizing. One of the things that happens when you vulnerable, yes, downsizing, is the releasing of the loads, taking away some things, looking at your life, looking at taking stock of what you have or don't have, and taking releasing that load and making things simple in life. Downsizing, you can downsize your clothing collection, you can downsize your shoes, downsize so many things. But when it comes to caregiving, and you've got your loved one has a diagnosis of Alzheimer's or another dementia, there are times when you have to downsize and make a move to go and live with that person, or you downsize with your loved one and they move with you. And is there anyone who's had to do that? I believe Brenda, if she's there, had to do that. Anyone else? You can raise your hand and share. Just have 2 people share about that in your experience of downsizing. Was that Jeannie? Maria, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
I moved my mother in with me. So she was living in Riverside. So now we reside in Los Angeles. She always wants to go home. She's always packing her things. It's been really stressful.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Okay, so downsizing, as I said, moving from a larger space to a smaller space, moving from your home to care for someone. But downsizing can be challenging. It can be happy and it can be very overwhelming. So it comes as somewhat of a mixed blessing. Downsizing can come with resistance because you're taking away some things that the person may cherish. Oh, okay. Sorry, Kimberly. I just saw your.
Yeah, we were on mute, and so you couldn't hear us. Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, so I downsized. I was living in Diamond Bar. I had to sell my house and move back to LA and moved in with my mother and my uncle. My mother's 93, my uncle's 83. My mother's the one with the dementia. And when I moved back in, it came at a time where my mother decided she wanted to stop walking. So she's been bedbound for 2 years now. And in downsizing, I went from 2,000 square feet down to 499 square feet. I built it, I just completed an ADU in the back so I could be close to them, because no matter where I went to the apartment, it still was a distance to getting to her. So downsizing, I've given away stuff. I've given away clothes, furniture, everything. So it's been an experience, a rewarding one. I realized a lot of stuff I had I didn't need. But yeah, I had to downsize, and it was a shock to go from something that large to something so small and everything. So I'm still going through the process. And Petra, you know, because you have been helping me through navigating doing that. But in building the ADU, having a place to stay, I'm staying with them, but I'm sleeping on a rollaway bed, and it's going on a year, and it has been torture on my back and my sciatica, but it's what I needed to do because I have to be close to her because her dementia is starting to progress, and it's just become a challenge.
Thank you so much for sharing, Brenda. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else there on 54th Street that would like to share? One more person?
Well, this is Jeannie, and I moved, in with Aunt Lorraine and San Pedro, for 6 months, and they're calling me the bag lady. And then once Aunt Lorraine forgot how to walk, and the doctor told us we couldn't take care of her no longer at home, so we had her placed in a facility. And then I was trying to take care of mommy from, staying at my house, and that didn't work out. So unfortunately, my bags were still packed. So then I moved into mommy's place. So I've actually downsized twice, to be close and help the family take care of our aunt and mother.
Thank you for sharing. And downsizing certainly can be an emotional experience. You have some attachments to things. Your loved one has attachments to things, the many years of accomplishing things, of purchasing things, items that they love. It's a lifetime of looking at property and kind of splitting up with it, so to speak. And so one of the things that's really important is that to recognize that it could be considered somewhat of a loss, and that there's grief with downsizing, getting rid of things. And it doesn't always come easy, but it is a decision that sometimes has to be made. Sometimes the decision to downsize comes at a very critical time when you don't have enough time to spend a month or two to do that, but you recognize something is going on. I live too far away from my parent, and a decision has to be made right away. And so downsizing happens sometimes within a matter of hours. We have to get rid of this. I need to call someone to get these things because you can't remain at home by yourself. So there are different situations that occur in the process of downsizing. And so we recognize that it is hard to do, and it should not be an offensive process where, let's get rid of this. This was taking up space and this, but understand that if it were you, how would you like someone to speak to you about releasing some of the things that could help the journey for the future be easier? So find a way to work together. If you have not done so yet, but need to do so and are thinking about it, find a way to do so together. And sometimes that may mean if your loved one wants to keep certain things, that you do keep them and honor them and kind of make and have their memory still remain somewhat. So it's really, really important to consider them and to be able to, we all collect things. At some point, we've collected things along the way. And if we all look at ourselves, whether it's the extra shoes, the clothing, how many hats can you wear? How many purses can you have? How many tennis shoes? All of these things we all do along the way. But there comes a point when we do have to release ourselves. And so just consider the person while you're thinking about that. Downsizing, again, it may be something that we have to think about in advance, planning, knowing that the diagnosis of a dementia, which is a progressive disease, may speak to that in all of our lives. We don't know that. But in anticipation of that, and just anticipation as we are all aging, and this year, all of us will be 1 year older. So what is it that we have that we can start the process about, that we have collected so many things, and who can we be a blessing to? What can you share with someone else? So think about it that way. It can be very overwhelming if you don't. Anyone has any comments on that? Because I'm checking in as I go along.
Petra, that's what I did with Mom, with her clothes. She had so many clothes that she's not gonna ever wear them again. And I discussed it with her, and I made it seemed like I said, Mom, you know, there are people that could really use some of your clothes that you're not wearing anymore. You want to help me donate some clothes? And she was like, okay. And I said, let me bring them and you show me which ones I can give away. And I would hold them up and she's like, oh, you give them that one. I don't need that or whatever. And I said, okay, but I took the closet in her bedroom and the things she wanted to keep are in that closet. So whenever she has to see something, I open the door and she can see those. But everything that was in that front closet is gone. And stuff. And so she even told me not too long ago, she said, that basket with all those shoes, I'm not gonna wear those shoes. Why don't you keep them or give them away? And I said, okay, I haven't donated them to charity yet, but I want her to feel like she's the one in charge making the decision instead of me just taking them. Because then she's like, you just take my stuff, you don't care about me, you just take it and give it away. So I let her make the offer and then I'll tell her, okay, I'll do it and stuff. So I just try to include her as much as possible.
Wonderful, Brenda. Thank you for sharing that. That's the partnership that I'm talking about, allowing them to kind of give input. Imelda has your hand up, so go ahead and share.
Well, this whole business of decluttering, it's just overwhelmed me, one of the many things, because my husband has, he has clothes and records and papers from a business he had. And, you know, I started to realize just listening in other groups and reading a little bit about it that with my insistence that we really focus on it, it just makes him, it gives him anxiety and then it bothers me and I back off. And, but every time I see all the space that's taken up that we really could use better, I get really frustrated. So I backed up on that. I try not to mention some of the things that really need to go, but I did talk to him one time about what do you think you could do with that wonderful collection of records, you know, and can we put the music on some other, you know, device or whatever. But that was only good for a few minutes. It's like, don't touch them. So you know what? I've just decided I'm just not going to touch them. But you know, I have so many things I have to check off my list of like, okay, stop overwhelming him, stop overwhelming yourself, just back off. And so I'm back at square one. I'm not making any progress.
Well,
Go ahead.
You are making progress if you've backed off and gonna let it be. I learned through mothers, I'm real OCD, just kind of crazy like that. But now I let the dust can build up. I can write my initials in it because, you know, you're already tired and stressed. You're worn out, you're exhausted. So that maybe, I don't know if you would think, well, he may want to see it, but you just, easier said than done. You got to fight your battles and let it go.
I'm
Because
learning.
you don't want, but you don't, but you've won though. If you can let it be, you haven't lost, you won.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Imelda. We appreciate that. Anyone else? And I certainly want to.
This is
go ahead,
Pam.
Pamela. Go ahead.
Yes. I'm having a little bit different experience. I had the loss of my husband the last 2 years, but the timing on when do we move his items forward. Well, in doing that, it ended up that my daughter also moved back in with me with my granddaughter. And she was in charge, she felt, of getting rid of all the things we needed to get rid of. And sometimes, as you all said, it can be harsh. And when they don't have the same value to the items that you do. But the one thing that I'm grateful for and thankful for at this point is being able to participate. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go through those items now and I'm going to pass them forward to charitable organizations or, those that are in need. And doing it myself was somewhat good. I kept thinking I don't want to leave or be in a condition where I can't participate in the downsizing in particular. So I'm downsizing with those thoughts in mind. And it can be overwhelming, let me tell you. I agree with you. It can be overwhelming emotionally and just physically. I hear you, Sharon. I get exhausted from doing that and, getting rid of things. And so this meeting is real important to me because I'm being able to look ahead, and I want to help my family members as much as I possibly can at this point, where there's not, to my knowledge, any real problem. But I don't want there to be a problem down the road. So this has been very helpful.
Thank you for sharing, Pam, about downsizing, sharing your experience. Anyone else? And I certainly want to honor the men in the room today. It's really important to, we recognize, and our hearts are with you, Winston. We recognize Mr. Dixon, Mr. Willett, if he's listening, and some others on 54th Street. Well, of course, Mr. Ripoll and Kenneth Ripoll, and there are two other men, I believe. Welcome. We appreciate you being here. And so feel free to share as well. Mr. Dixon, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Greg Dixon, caring for my wife, Barbara, who was diagnosed in August of 2020. And yes, we've gone through at least one round of downsizing, recognizing that, the amount of clothing and shoes and other possessions that my wife had got to be a little bit overwhelming. Having too many items around, makes it more difficult for her to make choices. So we've gone through a round of removing some of her clothing, shoes, and allowing my wife to participate, in making a choice on which things she wanted to keep around and which ones she was willing to let go and donate. Haven't got completely through the closet. It's still too full, which makes it very interesting when we have to go in and select what she's going to wear for the day. But realizing that at some point, it's necessary. Because too many choices makes it more difficult for the person that has dementia, especially when they still have the ability to be curious, look at things, worry about things, ask about certain things. So it's you have to balance out when you do it, and how much participation you can have your loved one to be involved in. Similarly, cared for my parents who were in San Antonio, Texas, and had to go through similar situations with them. It's a little different when it's your spouse and they have dementia versus your parents. They don't have dementia. However, they're older. They're, in similar situations, and allowing them to, have control over the things that they're no longer able to do for themselves. I've learned that, with my father, who had a couple of strokes. And that was one of his biggest things, is the loss of the ability to make decisions for himself. He pushed back against that, but I was able to, have a conversation with him and, convey to him that I wasn't taking away his ability to make choices. I was helping him along the way, because it was more difficult for him to make those decisions on his own. And I see similarities with my wife. It is difficult, but you as the loved one, all you can do is be along this journey with them to do the best that you can to assist them. It's difficult, to say the least. But the rewards are, being there with them when they need you, even when they don't recognize who you are, even when they tell you, well, who is that man? And it's like, well, I'm the only man here. Well, when did we get married? Well, that happened some time ago, but recognizing when I'm not there, she does recognize who I am. So that's all I have to share for right now.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We appreciate you sharing. And when there's a diagnosis, each day is new and each day is different. And what I was hearing was you have the opportunity to go through this process, certainly not kind of a rush, but take your time, and every day maybe you ask about showing an item. Is this an item that you would like a family member to have, a child to have, a neighbor to have? And you could kind of also, using your phone, take a photo of it if they ask about it and show them somehow that you gave it, or show who now has it. But there are ways of taking your time, maybe one day at a time, and going through this process, because it's somewhat overwhelming either way, and it's something that you'll have to do. So thank you all for sharing. I'm going to shift now, which is not separating ending downsizing, but the part of caregiving, which is connected to downsizing and so many other roles, the role of activity director, and the role of preparing the meals and taking care of all the finances, if you have to do that now, and the switching of roles in that way, caring for your loved one, taking them to doctor's appointments and things like that. But you also must care about yourself. Self-care is critical, and it's very, very important as a role of the caregiver. And that is okay to express your emotions. And for those of you who shared this morning, thank you for being vulnerable and saying, I'm overwhelmed. I see you, Winston. I'll let me finish this and I'll get to you. Confused and grateful that you're open, that you're hopeful. Some of you who are overwhelmed. And I hope at the end of this that you will feel supported, and that you will always contact Sharon and Jeannie and be a part of this group. And for the men in the room, that there's a group for men, so that you could feel supported that way as well. So it's okay to express your emotions. Don't wait until you're overwhelmed to ask for help. Ask for help. It's very, very important that you do this. Don't try to do the journey by yourself. Learn about this disease and educate yourself about it. And so you'll have a sense of what's going on and what to expect. And I'll talk more about that with our Savvy Caregiver course. Eat food to sustain you. Foods that will help you to maintain a certain energy. Lots of fruits and vegetables. Exercise, ask for help again. Sleeping, that you must sleep a certain amount of hours. Taking time away, getting away from the situation, replenishing yourself, then coming back with a fresh perspective. Self-care must be intentional. That means you plan it and you have someone to assist while you're gone, but it has to be done. So you have to monitor your own health. We have heard sometimes that those who did not do that can sometimes pass before the person with the disease. So it's really, really critical to understand that. All right, Winston, what would you like to share? Thank you for being here. And again, our hearts are with you.
Thank you so much. I come to you today to thank everyone that has expressed their condolences and prayers and flowers from the group for my beautiful wife of 66 years, 67 years, that passed away the first of last month. I am trying to keep it together. I gotta be strong for Winston. But in the meantime, when we backtrack to what we were just talking about as far as clothes, oh my gosh. I mean, we've been married, like I say, 67, going on 67 years. We have so many clothes. And in listening to everyone here, I think what I'm going to do is, as I've done in the past, rely on my 3 daughters. And they all live out here. We all live out here in Santa Clarita. So but it's something, because when I go in the closet, it's, even though I'm a male, but 67 years with my bride, I still get a little emotional. But with that said, I'm glad you talked about clothes and other things. And like I said, I'm gonna just leave it up to them. But I want to, again, thank you for your support, prayers, and I'm just so happy that I was able to give for her all the way till the end. And that's a blessing from God, to give me the strength and the fortitude to do what I had to do without putting her in a facility or without having other caregivers come. So I'm just saying that to say I praise and thank God for, I'm repeating myself, giving me the strength. Because at 85, going on 86, it ain't easy. Anyway, God bless everyone there, and Mr. Dixon and others. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Winston. Thank you. We appreciate and honor you for a job well done taking care of Pansy. And for those of you who don't know, their story is on NPR. It's the most amazing story, and their story could potentially be a wonderful movie. But it, you know, just to be married for 60 plus years, more than some of us are at that point, even in age. So we really, really appreciate and honor you for that. And thank you again.
Okay. And you know what? I just want to say one thing, and really, it really is God's blessing. We were 16 and 18 years old with my first and oldest daughter. So we prevailed, and I thank God. Thanks again.
You're welcome. Thank you for sharing your story and sharing Pansy with us. We appreciate you. And so just reminding ourselves here about the importance of self-care. You must take care of yourself. You must take care of yourself. It has to be intentional. So it has to be, again, planned and scheduled, that you take care of yourself. Can I hear from anyone who is now making that a really part of their life, that you must take care of yourself? Sharon, I saw your hand.
Well, when Mom was here with us, a friend of mine, she was caregiving for her mom and dad. So we would make arrangements. We went to places locally, so in case we got a call, we could get home quickly. But we went out to the Marina Del Rey. We stayed there at the Marriott. We went to Pasadena, and we stayed at the Langham. And it was very helpful. I mean, when I went in that Marriott, first he said, "Oh, you gonna be on the..." Oh, I said, "Man, I'm a caregiver. I said, I need to sleep in water." He put us on the night. And it was great. And you know, we Hamilton, he asked to speak to our group. And he wanted to tell everyone to take care of themselves, because his best friend, who was a doctor and a lawyer, didn't think nobody could take care of Mom but him. And this was too, the man ended up dying. The brother flew out from New York, placed Mother in a facility, and went on about his business. So you have to take care of yourself. You should not feel guilty about it, because it's just, it's necessary. Thank you. Right, it's necessary.
Petra, this is Brenda.
Yes.
In
doing what you said, and you and I talked about it, Minnie and Dora have convinced me to take a cruise with them this summer for 10 days. I haven't had a vacation. I'm just exhausted. But in doing that, I had a lot of guilt about leaving my mom.
Yeah, I know it, honey.
But we extended it. We
Yeah.
started with 5 days.
Okay.
And she said, I think I can do that. So when we finished, I think we're up now to 10 days. I thought, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. We made sure she's gonna have, coverage. And so she can get her some time and rejuvenate.
Right.
You need that, just to get away.
Yeah, because even when you get away, it's still in the back of your mind,
Right.
so you're not really getting away, it's always there. And like I said, nobody can take care of mommy like me, But if I got to hang out with my grandkids for a little while, see, that's all I needed. I was happy on that.
Pam?
Yes, dear.
Thanks to my 3 children, this one and my other son, and I have a daughter and 2 sons. They've been very, very helpful to me. Without their help,
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
And a lot of MIAs are kids.
and they taking the time to send me away on weekends.
Wonderful.
So
And you take it?
I do.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yes. I'm just so pleased, Petra, these other men you were talking about besides, Kenneth, these are this dear woman's sons are here with her. And so that's just terrific. And, one of them is a bass player. He's been in the play. I'm hoping it's gonna come to Nate Open so we can all go there.
That is wonderful. And to the mom, thank you for accepting what your sons have offered.
Yes.
Because part of caregiving, the caregiving journey is learning to accept, first of all, to ask for help. Second of all, to receive the help, saying yes. So it's really important, and thank you for doing that, sons, and we appreciate you. It's so very important. There are just a little bit about family dynamics is that we all have different families and all of them are not perfect. However, in a family of many people, there still may be one person who is doing the work. And in a family of many, there can be all of them helping out. So you never know what you will get, but you don't worry about that. This ACTS is already a family of support, and others here who are going through similar journeys are here to support all of you. So thank you again for being here. Mr. Dixon, go ahead.
Yes, in that regards, about self-care, been having to juggle a little bit just to get, some additional assistance, from my stepdaughter, Barbara's daughter. And that's been, sometimes on Saturday, sometimes on Sunday, but I'm making it intentional. I've already got the first week of May on my calendar. I've narrowed down my choices. I'm either going to Hawaii for a week, just like Kimberly did, or San Diego for a week, just because, it's been a long journey. I need, time to refresh, and, the other aspect, I'm a survivor, of throat cancer. Went back this past Monday, for a follow-up. And I just need time to recharge, so I'm trying to get it in, whenever I can, and as Brother Winston says, take care of yourself. And there are times when I feel, a little bit of selfishness, but I need to do it in order that I can continue to take care of my wife. It's needed. Just have to change your perspective on how you look at everything, in the bigger picture. You can only take care of someone as well as you take care of yourself.
Thank you for saying that. And Eleanor Brown, who is a local resident, and she's part of our Dementia Care Network. She has a quote, and the quote says, "You cannot pour from an empty cup." So you have to be replenished. You have to be prepared to continuously do this journey. So it's really, really important for you to consider that. So that's what we were talking about, self-care. One of the things that I want to talk about next is a caregiver's pledge. I'm going to read that, and then we'll talk about balancing all of this together, having to balance downsizing, caregiving, and yourself and your family, and what you've got plans and ideas and goals for yourself. So there is a caregiver's pledge, and it says, "I will understand that I can't care for anyone else if I also don't care for myself. I will keep an image in my mind of putting the oxygen mask on myself first. I will remember that the only person I can change is myself. I cannot change my loved one who is ill, nor my family members. I will find opportunities to laugh daily. These might come in movies, jokes, television, or with friends who will see humor in my situation and remind me to do the same." And so when issues are going on day after day, you will have to laugh. It's part of what you just have to do. I will get away from my caregiving duties on a regular basis, even if it's just to walk around the block. But I will also find ways to have lunch with a friend, go to a movie, window shop, breathe in fresh air, watch the sunset, or eat a hot fudge sundae. I will visit a support group where you are today, either online or in person in the community where this is absolutely it, so that I know I'm not alone. If a support group isn't right for me, I will find a friend to talk to, call a family consultant, or attend a workshop. I will learn as much as I can about my loved one's illness so I can better care for him or her with understanding. I will learn techniques that will make caregiving easier for both of us. I will say yes when people offer to help. I will make a list of things they can do and put it on the refrigerator so that when the offer comes, I'll be ready. When there are no offers, I will ask for help, even if it's sometimes hard to do. I will use community resources such as Meals on Wheels, transportation services, adult day programs, volunteer respite programs to make my caregiver duties easier. I will find something I really like to do and make sure I find time to do it on a regular basis. Just because I'm a caregiver doesn't mean I have to give up everything that's meaningful to me. I will read, knit, garden, scrapbook, do genealogy or woodworking or design, or designate periods of time each week, for designated periods of time each week. I will remember I am loved, I am appreciated, even when my loved one can't tell me that. I will honor the nurturing responsibility, caring, and support that I provide to my loved one as a gift I give. And so I hope that that resonates with all of you. We've spoken about that, and some of you have shared about that. The fact that you do have to say, prepare, take care of yourself, asking for help, saying yes to receiving the help, becoming educated about the disease so that you understand what's happening with your family and you're not overwhelmed by the actual disease, the stages of it, and the behaviors that you may or may not see. And so it's really, really important to consider this. We do have a Savvy Caregiver course, which is a free course. I facilitate that course as well as others for family members who are caring for someone with a dementia. There are two offerings of that course. It's a 6-week course, 2 hours a week. It's virtual. Some are now being, as we're trying to get back into the community, some are offered in the community, but it certainly is virtual so that other family members, wherever they are in the world or in the States, can join in and participate in the learning about this disease. So it's the Savvy Caregiver course, and I will place my number and email address in the chat. You can always reach out to me. Sharon and Jeannie has my information. Kimberly has my information. So if you need to follow up with me, you certainly can. But we want to make sure. I'm sorry?
I was just saying, it's an excellent class.
Yes, and everyone who takes it really appreciates learning about what they can do to help their loved ones at this time. So please take advantage of the course. We really, really would love it if everyone who participates in this support group is educated about this disease by participating in the class. So I put my email address in the chat, and feel free again to email me. One of the things now that we're going to cover is balancing the caregiving life. What does that look like? To balance your life, to balance self-care, to balance all the doctor's appointments, the new roles that have to be met, all of these things, coping with stress, dealing with your emotions. It's really, really important that you find yourself in a space of a support group where you are emotionally supported, because there can be reasons why there is caregiver burnout, that there's a lack of privacy. You no longer have any privacy. You just have to do things all the time. There's never really time for you. And you have sometimes some unreasonable demands for your life, your person, unrealistic expectations by family members, by yourself. These can all add stress to you. So it's really important to consider that. There's also, again, I'm going to be very real. Dr. Brian Gaines, who potentially some of you may know or not know, had an experience where his father got a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And he shares this story, so I don't mind saying it because he says it all the time, is that he had to, at that point, care for a father who did not care for him. And so there are some family dynamics that are real that way. And so we have to remind ourselves that you now have this role, and for whatever reason that you have it, that you're going to do the best job possible. And to release anxiety and anger and frustration, that you get yourself as a part of this in a support group, and you are emotionally supported, because it really is overwhelming. Very, very overwhelming. Some days are better than others. There can be exhaustion. Somebody mentioned being exhausted from early in the morning when your duties start, so to speak, to late at night when you're finally okay with they're in bed, and now I can do 1 or 2 things for myself, but I'm really, really exhausted. And you should not go day after day after day after day like that. Considering your own health, how do you balance that? When do you get to go to the doctor for yourself? Making sure that you are okay as well to continue the journey. Making sure that your mood is okay, and that when you are communicating with your loved one, it's not from a place of anger or frustration, but it's with kindness and love and support, that you are there for them, and they can see that in your face, in your smile, versus a frown and you just, frustration. because I believe that they can pick up on that. So it's really important to know that. And that the sleeplessness may be a result of not scheduling or not preparing your days, that you kind of plan your days out so that that's helpful for you and the loved one that you're caring for. That's really, really important. And then one other thing is balancing life again, learning how to reduce your stress by accepting services, accepting yes to a help, accepting also if the person has belonged to a church, do they have a special service that you and your loved one can attend and still participate in? Or are you now doing it online versus and using YouTube or something like that? Trying to incorporate opportunities where you can both work together. Maybe it's a fun activity and you're both exercising together using a YouTube channel. There's so many. Just following along and just making a time of memories as much as possible. Laughing when you can, reminiscing, going through old pictures, just balancing life where you also are participating and are happy along with your loved ones. Simplify, as you learn about the disease, you will learn to simplify your way of communicating with them. Never communicating with someone who has a diagnosis from the back, so you're not speaking to them behind them or on the sides, but always face to face so they could see you and hear you better. And again, taking care of yourself by participating in a support group. All of this is balancing your life with your me time, with eating properly, exercising, going away, getting respite for yourself, doing things that you want to do, and yet be able to care for your loved ones. It's important, again, to Alzheimer's Los Angeles is available for any type of information that you would need to help you along your journey. We have the support groups, of which this is one of them, educational opportunities that we have. And we appreciate Sharon and Jeannie for being absolutely the boots on the ground in the community on 54th Street, where we do take some of our materials. And for those of you who are there, you will see some of the materials that you can take home. Those are just a few of the things. So that's today's session on downsizing, caregiving, and balancing life. And I hope that it has been helpful. Are there any questions or comments? And I'd love to hear from, I'm sorry, I don't know your names, the two sons that are there today and on 54th Street. Would you like to share, please? We'd love to hear from you.
I'm Dwayne. A question I'm sure a lot of people have that no one wants to deal with because of the guilt. What happens when a parent or a loved one it just becomes so much? At what point do you have to put them in a home? You know, no one wants to do it, of course, and sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes if that person is a 10 out of 1 to 10, and you just can't handle it because of your health or something. What happens? What would you suggest at that time? What's the cutoff point?
Dwayne, thank you for that. And thank you for being honest. And you did answer your own question. When it's so overwhelming that it affects the life of the caregiver themselves, when it comes to a point where there has to be lifting and movement and helping them in such an overwhelming way from the time the caregiver gets up in the morning until the time they go to bed, that's a lot of work. So along the way and along the journey, as you educate yourself, there can be family meetings to look at what is it that we need to know now? What decisions do we need to make now? Because things have changed and we really are looking out for both people, the caregiver and the person with the disease. So that can come by speaking to a care counselor where we have care counselors, or it can come with just the family meeting together periodically to look at where you are and what has changed and what needs to change moving forward. Any comments from anyone? Does that sound okay, Dwayne? You did answer it.
Petra, you know, you have to be concerned about the safety and well-being of the caregiving and also the caregiver. And with that, Lorraine, when she forgot how to walk, the doctor, he told us, he said, it's out of your hands now. You can't take care of her. So she ended up in a nice facility, and I do thank God that Aunt Lorraine had a few pennies because it is expensive. And she was at Palace Verdes Healthcare. But what Jeannie and I learned is to be present.
That's the key.
That's the key. Because the people cannot think that you just dropped off your loved one. And you know how we do it. We got fourth cousin removed, whomever. You can get some friends to just go by, but there's constant visitation.
And change up your time, change up your day, you know, and we always made sure that we spoke to the staff and be sure that they knew that we were out there. And when Ray first went there, we were out there 2-3 times
A day, 40-mile round trip.
7 days a week. And eventually the mommy's Alzheimer's got bad and we weren't out there maybe once a day. I mean, we were still out there, and sometimes we would be out there as long as 5 minutes. And we would go in and see Aunt Lorraine, and she'd say, "Oh, hi, baby." And we would walk out the room, go back in, and go, "Oh, baby, I haven't seen you in such a long time." You know, because they don't remember that you're even coming to visit them. You know, they don't have a clue. But Aunt Lorraine, she was one to check. I mean, you know what? I need to change these drapes. They've been up here so long. And I think, you know what, Aunt we'll do that next time, you know. So they do get activated to their, at least Aunt Lorraine did, you know. But it's your presence, you know. You've got to be present. You got to know that you're coming out there.
Yeah, that's you. And then we would give them a nice Christmas gift from Aunt Lorraine, let them know that we appreciate them. And Aunt Lorraine, she did. She had more social interaction. She was playing her puzzles, talking with people. Aunt Lorraine got herself a boyfriend about there.
And they were sitting next to a Chinese lady. The lady spoke Chinese. Aunt Lorraine spoke English, but they were communicating. You know, it was the strangest thing, but it was good, and you can't let that guilt that, oh, I'm gonna keep you at home, I'm not gonna push you. You gotta let that go. You gotta get rid of that guilt. Because it is for the safety of them when they start falling.
Yes.
That's to me, that's the clue right there. Okay, they need to go when they start falling. You know, because you don't want them to fall and break a hip or break something, and then you got a big problem then. So, you know, so they start falling. So, don't beat yourself up. Don't feel guilty. You know, I made this promise. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Life changes. You know. So
and books say, if we confess our sins, He's faithful and just to forgive us and cleanse us, because God knows that we are just dirt. We're just humanity, and everybody has their point. Their breaking point. So I'm thankful we didn't have to put that darling mother of mine.
But we discussed it, and we knew we were gonna put her. You know, we were able to take care of mommy at home. And we tell people, you know, we might make it sound like it was easy, but it wasn't.
No,
you know, it was hard even with us working together. It was very hard. We cried, we laughed. You know, our other sister who's attending someone's funeral today, she would come by every day after work to visit mommy. Mommy would talk about her. And then my sister said she would sit in the car for 30 minutes and crying before she could even go home. You know, because it's so emotional. You're losing them right in front of your face. You're grieving. Now, you know, and you'll grieve again. But my sister always says, is what you look at the end is that pillow cover. You know, the night that I made her dress, it was the best night of sleep I had. I knew where mommy was. I knew we had the best of the could. And I was relieved, you know, because I didn't have to sleep in one ear. So
that's what I'm dealing with now. So the Medicare stepped in and they're helping me. And the nurse that comes once a week we talk every week about my mom's progression. And some of the things she's been telling me, and she said at some point, you're gonna have to place your mom. So she's preparing me for it, and we talk about it, and she said, the way you'll know, she says, your mom is doing good. And she said, it could be a couple of years from now, whatever. She said, but when it gets to the point where she begins to swallow, how to swallow, which means she can't drink, she can't eat or whatever, and she said, and that means now we've got to put a tube down there. She said, that's something you have to decide. Do you don't want that for your mother? And then she said, IV. And she said, so these are things to think about. So my brother came over a couple of weeks ago and I was telling him what the nurse said. And I said, you know, I don't make any decision without talking to you. And I said, she said, when it gets to that point, this is what they would have to do. And I said, I don't want her to do that. He said, I don't either. He said, so we made the decision that if it comes to the point where she can't swallow, we're not putting a tube down her throat.
No.
We'd rather let her transition slow.
Yeah.
And then she said, it may also get to the point where things just really start kind of shutting down. And she said, and you may have to place her in a home. And she said, oh, you okay? So I had that conversation with him. He's been good about it. He wanted to put her in a home way at the onset, and then he kind of had a change of heart. And now that he sees that it's progressing and stuff, and he said, I'm okay. If you're okay with it, I'm okay with it. And I told him, we have a directive on file that says to resuscitate. And I told the nurse, I said, I'm the caregiver, it's on file with Kaiser, I make the final decision. And if it comes to that, I don't want to resuscitate her because it's too much trauma on her body. I don't want my mother to experience that.
Right, I understand what you're saying, but Minnie, let me tell you, when Minnie and Dora, when they first came, they looked like they did what they come here. But once this dear soul realized she had to place her mother, and I know she didn't want to do it.
Okay, it's hard.
It was hard.
I wanted to keep her at home. It's a family of 4 girls. And I retired to take care of my mom, but 2 of them were missing in action. The other one was still working. And so between my other sister and Brenda, they would come and spend the night with my mom to give me some relief. So that I could at least, because I'm married, so I can go home and at least spend one night at home and then come back. But, you know, I wanted to, you know, to keep her at home, but as Sharon said, the decision was taken out of my hand because she had to go to the hospital and the doctor said, we're not going to release her back home. She has to go to the facility. And so we put her in a facility, but it was hard.
But you guys were out there though.
But we were out there.
Every day.
No work there.
Day, like you said, I would be worse. So I was there, 140 something and walk in there and say, where's Aunt Peaches? And they say, oh, she's in there. And I would walk in there and I say, Aunt Peaches, she just went. She wasn't really having conversation. I just wait and I sit there a little while. She had lunch. I sat with her when she started eating. I'm like, okay, gotta go. And I would leave, but they never knew when we were coming.
No, they don't know.
Many of them was taking care of the staff too. They would give them and they took care of Peaches. I did better. Well, communicating, we was trying to sit, and there you couldn't shut her up.
See?
And another thing, too, don't be hospice and palliative care. Don't let those, especially hospice, scare you. Ayla Ray was on the program, and I always said he kicked her off, but she actually told me no, she graduated from the program. Okay, but she did, you know, we put her on hospice, Ayla Ray thrived, she put on weight, and she did, she graduated from the program. and then we put it back on again. And then we had Lonnie on hospice, but you know, their services really are a godsend.
Yeah.
And it's not a death sentence as we think it's only got, they only have given 6 months of leave.
Yeah.
It really is not. So don't let that word scare you, you know, and then there is palliative care, which is kind of like but they were really a godsend.
They were.
Well, actually, both for Angel Ray and for mine. So, but don't be afraid of that.
Yeah. That's what my mom just said. They are exceptions.
Yeah.
They are.
They,
And.
Thank you so much.
Answer up there. Oh.
Thank you so much. This is all about balancing the life of a caregiver and caregiving and downsizing and all of the things that we're talking about this morning. Dwayne, do you feel satisfied with the answer and the comments?
Yes, and all the comments help. Yes, definitely.
Thank you. And we'll,
hopefully.
But just get your mind ready, it could. Yeah.
yeah,
It could.
thank you so much for being here. You and your mom. Would your mom like to share something, and your brother?
Okay, but Dolores has something she can say.
I learned about. I was just commenting that I'm happy to find this has been really, really a great meeting for me.
Thank you.
Praise God, we're happy
To
to hear
have
that.
my family with me,
Mhm.
and the other one is there with him.
Good, but I knew you'd have the sons, because I tell them, I can tell you this, mother, them sons is just behind Jesus.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. and we live
No.
the power. Oh, yeah, well, we appreciate it, we're just thankful we can give it, and that's everything we do, is we give it to our community.
I'm just trying to say that my mother had Alzheimer's too.
Okay,
We didn't know it was.
right.
She used to drive her car, her Cadillac. She lived in Marina, and she'd come all the way down to our house and on the freeway, you know, and, you know, when we realized it was Alzheimer's, we go, oh my gosh, you should be driving.
Yeah.
You know, and she'd come to my job with the, and I thought, oh my God, we gotta do something with them.
Mhm.
And so we took her to a place.
Okay. But that was the best for her, though. Because,
One last thing to say about my husband, he was a twin. And his twin, just the two of them. And he goes through the house all day, and she's been gone for 15, 16 years. And all of a sudden, all day long, where is you about? He's asking about her. Where is she?
It's encouraging, 'cause my great grandmother had it, my mother had it, my father had it. My grandmother missed it because she died early. You know, my great grandmother was like in her 80s. My mother died, when she was in her 80s. And I'm in my 80s.
Well, his sister didn't pass with Alzheimer's. She had another illness. But the past 2 or 3 years now, everything is wrapped around his sister.
Gene, where is Gene?
It's all night. He gets up at night sometimes,
sundown.
and still asking for her, going around looking for
And the repeating,
her. Oh, hey.
but this is why Petra's saying we have to be educated, because when we know, it still can make
Yeah.
you lose your last nerve, but when you have the education, what we always say is this is a safe place, because a slow leak is better than a blowout. You got to get this thing out, what's happening.
That course that Petra was just talking about is very helpful when it comes to those types of, it really helps to explain the progression.
Yes.
And help you to understand, because, you know, we're still here living and conducting our lives as normal, and they're in a different space. And so
Yes.
sometimes it's hard for us to be accepting of that because we don't understand it, but they can't help themselves.
They can't know.
Yeah, and when we attended that play a couple of weeks ago, the Alzheimer's play.
Yes.
And the one takeaway I got away from there, and I'm applying it with my mom now, is that instead of trying to force her into my world, I now have to go into her world.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like you said, where your husband is talking, asking about his twin sister, my mom now is talking about her mother. And then she talks to me as if I've grown up with her. And she said, remember when we used to be out playing and mom would do this and that? And I realized, okay, that's where she is. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you remember.
Yeah.
And then she starts laughing, and I don't know what she's laughing at. I laugh right and stuff, but she tells me all the time, you know, Mama came to visit me, and I was like, she did. Well, what she say to you? And then she just go off on something else. And she calls me her sister, Minnie's mother, and she'll say Peaches. And I say, she said Peaches, I'm talking to you. And I said, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, because I know she's starting to get confused in
Right.
the faces and stuff, but you do have to go to their world.
Right.
They can't fit in yours. And when you try, you see the hurt in their eyes.
Yeah.
Because they're not able to decipher or figure it out. And so the last 3 weeks or so has really helped me by going into her world. When she go down that rabbit hole, sometimes I go down there with her, and I just sit there with her, and then she comes out of it, and she's okay.
Well, remember we say it ended up with our darling mother was, okay, oh, I'm sorry, Mom, love you, Mom. And we would tell her that, she'd say, "You're lying." Now she would say, "There you go." Yeah.
She'll that and I,
Yeah. What it is, you know, I think you wanted to say something, sweetheart.
Oh, I was just gonna say to the brother, I think a key takeaway that I got from all that everybody has said when you asked about was that Jeannie said, while they didn't have to place Mother Peggy, they knew that they had already researched and knew where they would place her. So while you hope it doesn't come to that, you just may want to do your research and know so that you don't come up to like where it's really, you can't do it anymore. And now you got to go through and find, you know what I'm saying? It's just the first place you find. Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I was a caregiver for my great grandmother.
Oh, okay.
Coming home from school every year. Be with her and take her for walks.
Yeah, they didn't know that.
Yeah, I know that. You know, I just figured it was just old age. And I never heard of it at all.
that's a good thing, Kimberly. And Peter, this is for you, because the nurse told me the same thing. She said it could be next year, but she said, do your research now. So Petra, are there agencies or facilities that your organization might have that might have like the cost scale on it, where we could kind of start looking at, because she told me, she said, if the time comes, she said, you don't want to be scrambling, like you said, Kimberly, and it wouldn't take anything. Yeah, so if there are this Petra that you maybe could send to Jeannie and Sharon, that they could share with us, that we could kind of start looking, doesn't mean we're gonna move it, but just kind of prepare, because we know there may be, it may come, but at least at that point, if we're satisfied with it.
Yeah. If we do have a.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's really important to prepare and to plan. And there is an organization, a few organizations that helps families based on your income and what you're looking for. And as you visit particular sites, you will recognize kind of the quality that you're looking for. Ask about staff, even though during the pandemic, there has been lots of changes as it relates to caregivers. But when you find a facility where the staff has been there for many, many years, you know that things are much better there and that the staff remains, versus a place where everyone has been there 3 months, 2 weeks, 1 week, and so on. That's, you know, maybe a high turnover rate for some reason. So it's really important to consider all of these things and to also ask other people. When you've done your research, you can certainly come back to the group and ask anyone, have you heard of this place? Or you could run it by me, I will ask others. But yes, I will send information. I've made a note to send to Kimberly, Sharon, and Jeannie, just to follow up regarding this particular question. So thank you. Thank you, Valerie. You have to leave. We appreciate you being here. Darla asked about the class. I will also send a schedule of the next Savvy Caregiver courses, and you can look and see if those are times that you can take the class. It's a commitment. It really is a commitment, but it's worth it. When you understand the process of dementia, it's a disease of the brain, and what actually occurs, the changes that occur in the brain about, being able to handle the day-to-day of life, perception and organization and judgment, and all of these areas are affected once there is dementia. And certainly confusion is present. So you can imagine what the person is dealing with and trying to still live with the disease. So I will be sending a follow-up that will in turn be shared with all of you.
I have a name and number I want to give out. Her name is Barbara Savage. And Brenda can testify about how she helped her neighbor out. And she won't charge you. She gets paid by, I guess, the facilities or whatever, but every person that we recommended to Barbara, they come back very pleased with her.
And she actually.
What's Barbara's number?
It's a 714 area code. 681.
0733.
You got it.
Yeah, okay.
What she did with my neighbor who, Luke transitioned last year. in
Oh, she
February,
did. Okay.
and in her 60s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
She ended up being diagnosed in the 50s. I was the one who told her husband, you need to take her. But Barbara never let Dave go anywhere without her going with them to the facility. She asked him, what did he want? And then she found the facilities, and then she went with him to help him look at it. And through that, Dave was like, I don't know what I would have done without her, because he had no clue, but she walked him through the whole process. And the final facility that Lou was at, that where she transitioned in her sleep, was a facility that Barbara helped him to find.
We have another caregiver too, which is Barbara Bullock still on the line? I don't think so. But anyway, someone that she knows very well, and they live here. She worked with Barbara Savage and said she just got, the Queen's treatment, because either she or someone they know, they're gonna go with you. They're gonna know the right questions to ask and all of that. And she's very happy with the place. So, Dr. Carroll told us that last talk, we gotta have him back too, was he said, stop making the promises.
Yeah.
We don't want to place them. The Lord knows we don't.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
For them and for you. And it's my other sister Vivian says, if they were in their right mind, they would tell you, put me somewhere.
Yeah.
They wouldn't want you with all of that. So you gotta weigh all of that. And we're always available if you want to have a little do with us, whatever. We here to serve you all.
And Sharon, also, I've been telling my loved ones, I told my daughter, whatever, I said, let me explain something to you. If it ever gets to the point where you have to make a decision, I said, place me somewhere, just make sure they ain't working on me. I don't want you to give up living to think you have to do that. I said, so I'm okay. I'm saying to you now, in case I get to a point where I can. And I tell all of them, I said, they somewhere just let it be a nice.
Yeah.
Make sure they know that I got family members.
Yeah, no, that's the key.
Any other questions? If not, we'll turn it back over to Sharon and Jeannie. Remember that there are resources out there for you, and there are classes for you to take so that you will be educated about the diagnosis and what to expect, understand some skills and strategies, and be able to continue your journey of caregiving.
Thank you, Ms. Petra.